able to subdivide, right? And then so the idea is to control it through that binary between natural resource and residential. Um, and so in that way, the board can sort of handle these properties on a case by case basis because as a landowner, every landowner has the ability to apply to the board to redesignate their property within the development plan. And the idea is that then the board can look at the particularities of a certain piece of property and determine, okay, is this appropriate to move into residential, or is this something that should stay natural resource, rather than like a blanket restriction that doesn't allow for flexibility and consideration. Particularly, there could be a development proposal that doesn't, even contemplate access to the water. That may be something the board may be interested in considering, right? And so the idea of going like property by property through designations and redesignation is kind of what we mean when we say limited development near Bird River.
I saw a question about it says, is there no limit on how many residences / cottages are allowed to build on a given size or area of river or lake surface? So the answer to that is sort of. The development plan in section 15.2.1, policy number 8, talks about a maximum density of 3 residential units per acre in cottage areas, and then a maximum density of 1 residential unit per acre in rural residential areas. So that's the way the kind of overall number of residences and cottages are being developed in any given area. It's not really related to the rivers or the lakes, more about just an overall cap on density. And then this would further be implemented in zoning bylaws, which should establish kind of regulations around parcel sizes and dimensions, and then of course also in most of these areas which are serviced with on-site septic tanks, the province has rules about how big each of those sites needs to be. So it's kind of regulated through a few different ways.
I see 2 questions here that I'd like to answer. One is asking about water studies and rare species assessments. We mentioned that, the development plan is not about subdivision. We are not developers, right? We're planners. And so a lot of those kind of studies, those are the responsibility of the developer. So if you look at the last section of that development plan, we have something called implementation tools. And in that section, you'll find some of the requirements that development applicants may have to provide as part of the development permit application. And as something like a water study or a species at risk study, that kind of thing, that would all be the responsibility of the developer to submit before they can receive their development approval, because there's a ton of provincial regulation about all those kind of things that you're talking about, and obviously in a development plan, we can't put every single provincial regulation for every kind of development that's in there. So what we do is we just, make reference that development must comply with these provincial regulations, that, when required in these certain areas, or where, it's been identified that there's, important wildlife habitat, that sort of thing, there is a requirement for additional studies. But it's not on the municipality to conduct those studies, or the board to conduct those studies. That is on, if someone is wanting to develop there, that is a cost that they will have to bear as part of their development application process. And what the development plan does is it directs the board and the member municipalities to make sure that they're looking for these studies being undertaken by the developer if and when they're looking to develop. I see another question too about how will the RM deal with having non-cottage enterprises in designated cottage areas? So it depends a bit on the circumstances. A good question. So we mentioned legal non-conforming uses. Basically, if a use was established legally at a previous time under a previous planning framework, it gets grandfathered in, and it can continue to exist. It also may depend on the zoning, right? Because you may have an area that's got this blanket residential designation, but within under the zoning bylaw, things get a little bit more granular. So it could be that it complies with the zoning bylaw, and within the residential, I'm assuming urban residential policy at least, we talk about sort of supportive complementary uses, something like a corner store, things like that. So, but if you're talking about designated cottage areas, it's a case by case basis. It depends if it was legally established at the time. If it was an illegally established enterprise, then it would sort of be at the discretion of the board about how they would kind of wish to pursue that. If you have a specific example in mind, you can email me, and I can maybe give you a better answer.
There's a question asking about a potential amalgamation between the RM of Alexander and the town of Howard Pine Falls, and implications to tax. I don't know anything about tax, but what I can tell you, and we're not involved in any talks about amalgamation either. But I do know that the town and the RM, are at very exploratory stages, very initial. They have to meet with the province, the Minister of Municipal Relations, but that hasn't happened yet. So it's I would say you can chat with your local councillor, but it's definitely not a for sure thing, and I think what I've heard from councillors in the past is they have that same question about tax implications and the finances of it all. So still very exploratory, still very early, and not definite at all.
I have a question here. Did you actually visit Bird River before proposing these areas for redesignation, or did you just pick an area on the map that looks undeveloped? We certainly did visit Bird River multiple times. In fact, we also had conversations with, the board and certain landowners. So we definitely did not just pick an area on a map that looks undeveloped. So I hope that answers that question. I think we're just about reaching the end of our time here. I know we weren't able to get to every single question. There were quite a few coming in. My email is in the chat if you'd like to chat further. Feel free to shoot me an email. There's also the survey. I think my colleague Raquel posted it, but I'll ask her to post it again. If you want to get any comments in writing about the draft, this is a great way to do it because, as I said, right now the plan's in draft form. It's super easy to make any changes that we need to. Once it hits first reading, then things become a little bit more difficult to make changes. So really, this is the best time to submit feedback. So please use that survey. It puts it in writing. Then we can generate like a report based on all the feedback we receive and discuss it with the board. So that is strongly encouraged that everyone tonight fills that out. It would be great, and ultimately we want to make a plan that reflects the best interests of the community. So yeah, that would be much appreciated.
Matt,
Yeah.
how long are we leaving that survey open? I know timelines are tight, but should we leave it open at least till the end of the week? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if folks wanna read the development plan, which I think is also linked in the chat there, you can kind of do a more comprehensive and slower read. It's maybe not the most interesting of reading material, but so it might take you a couple sessions to get through it all. But we really do appreciate the feedback that we got tonight and that we're going to get through those surveys, and We want to thank everyone for coming out.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.